Well, good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. How are you today? Everything good? Yeah, we are here. We're just glad to be alive, healthy thus far. Hope you're doing okay in these days and time. We just came through that recall election situation this Tuesday, and the people have spoken. They say, hey, no on recalling Governor Newsom. And yeah, there it is. A lot of questions, though, right? You want to know what the heck, why do we even go through this? And we had a fantastic town hall meeting last week, and we did a lot of different activities that would keep you informed because that's what we want to do is inform and inspire the community. And we had a fantastic panel. We had Dr. Anthony Samad, we had Carolyn Fowler, we had Councilman Al Austin, and then Brother Craig DeLuce from the Republican Party. It was really a great and powerful discussion that was giving us great information and insight going into the election. We also heard, from the California State Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, who was giving us the full information on how to vote, all of the ways to vote. They were really making it easy for us to go out there to the polls. Jan Perry came through at one point and weighed in. I mean, it's, just got a full round of information and inspiration during this election time. So, as promised during the recall town hall meeting, we are coming back now. After the results are in, we're bringing back most of our panel to just kind of recap and reflect, right, on the election. We'll talk about how many people voted. We'll talk about how many people even voted for Larry Elder. It's like a couple million, so want him. So that's kind of interesting. Without further ado, we're going to get into it. First off, our good friend, she's the chair of the Women's Caucus of the California State Democratic Party and also on the National Committee of the Democratic Party. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolyn Fowler, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Greetings. Welcome. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Yes. All right. Joining us is, when we want to really open our minds and get the full information, we always call the hotline. You got to go on speed dial because, this is our favorite academic, intellectual, deep analysis of all things economic and political. Thank you, Dr. Anthony Samad. Good morning.
Good morning, Brother Greg. Good morning, Sister Carolyn. How are you guys doing this morning?
Greetings. Great. Good to see you as usual.
Doing all right. We're waiting on Craig DeLuce from the California Republican Party to check in with us. He said that he was coming through. He hasn't made it yet, but we're just going to get on started and plug him in when he arrives.
That's right. The school bus ain't going to wait. Hey, if he want to get schooled this morning, he gonna have to run for the bus. Okay.
Wow.
And so it begins.
It begins. Yes. All right. I just would like to know from both of you. I'm looking at these numbers. Let me call my little thing back up. I saw. All right, so it says that 5,887,471 people, or 63.8%, voted no to the question, should Governor Gavin Newsom be recalled? And then 3,335,779, or 36%, wanted, Gavin Newsom recalled. Is that a lot of people? Or, it looks like a lot of people to me, but what do you guys think, the professionals in this area? Is that a lot of people, or did the recall really just get like slam dunked?
You want Carolyn to go first? You want me to go first?
Either one is good for me. Take it, Carolyn.
Well, I'm a numbers person, so for me, the data said right out front that this was a poor investment of $276 million that could have gone to helping students throughout the state, whether it's student debt, whether it's more digital information, whether it's helping more students have broadband, whatever. 276 now is not a number to, and you know what the number they don't talk about? What about the campaign money that was raised? I believe Gavin raised about $70 million. So when you start adding all of that up, what a waste. But the numbers for a special election, that was an outstanding turnout for a special election. Special elections usually don't go more than 13, 15, maybe if you're lucky, 20%, but that's unusual depending on the races. But if you just look at the fact that the Democrats have 10 million registered voters, the Republicans have 5.3 million, and similarly, somewhere in there maybe are independents because they have at one point or another become disgusted with either of the major parties. So all the Democrats needed to do was to ensure that at least half their voters turned out. And they know they can count on, even if they didn't all vote no, they know that they can get a good portion of the independents. So for me, the game was just about making sure people knew what to do and why. And I think it's a lesson for the party in terms of how do we continually inform voters about what is being done on their behalf. So I'll just stop there with the data. But for me, the numbers were set and told everything if you paid attention to that.
All right. Dr. Saban, I mean, a lot of folks, hold on. I'm talking to our guy right now. So hold on one sec. Well, I'm going to try to
tell him to stop texting and just click the link.
Jump on. Okay, Dr. Saban, look, over 2 million people voted for Larry Elder. Is that a lot of people, or did he just get smashed?
Well, first of all, he did get smashed because 63.8% is higher than he beat John Cox last election, which was 62%. So even some Republicans said this don't make no damn sense, And then I read a couple of articles that said that Larry Elder was the best thing that ever happened to Gavin Newsom because, as progressive as moderate Republicans think they are, they ain't that progressive. Okay, even areas of San Diego that Cox carried in the last election voted no on the recall. Okay, so you had a lot of people who basically just said that this is a waste of time and money. But the deeper play is how do we continually allow ourselves to be, led by a group of ideologues who know they can't win, but they can just create a mass distraction. And so the lesson here, particularly for the Democrats, is that they need to go over the state constitution and basically modify or change everything that's archaic that can create chaos. They should have did it after the last recall, but they didn't. Okay. Now we've been trying to get a bullet train built, for 20 years. We've been trying to get, housing, Jerry Brown disbanded CRA, all that money could have went into something more productive for the state other than wasting people's time. And I concur with Carolyn in terms of, the campaign spending. A lot of people don't know that people will lead you into a race that you can't win just so that they can make money off of you. That's a whole conversation. You got campaign consultants that work one campaign a year and they don't have to work for 2 years. Okay, they charge that much money. Then when you ask where's your black consultants, they so we really need to understand that this was an engagement and foolishness. They got pissed off at him because he didn't have a mask on at a dinner. When most people, when they sit down to eat or start eating and drinking, take the mask off anyway. But all they need is a little bit. All they need is a little bit of room. Your haters just need a little bit of room to make much ado about nothing. Okay.
The French Laundry incident. I saw an interview this morning with CBS, and Governor Newsom said, okay, look, that was a mistake, and I had to say, yeah, you're bad, on that one, But look, let me bring in our good friend Craig DeLuce, our brand new friend from the California Republican Assembly. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. I apologize for my tardiness.
That's right.
We was afraid you wasn't going to show.
Oh, no. Just, some of us have jobs and have work. So
I knew you
I got a real job
that.
too. I run a think tank, okay? That's why I'm at work right now.
That's right. That's good. That's good. So Craig, you've been hearing a little bit. Have you been hearing a little bit of our discussion as you jumped in?
Yeah, first of all, understand that the rules that are in place are the rules that allow for a recall. If you want to change the rules, change the rules. You've had the opportunity to change the rules all this time. You decided not to. It's frustrating. It's interesting to me, and I keep seeing Democrats do this. People follow the law, and then you get mad that they follow the law. If you want to change the law, change the law. But don't get mad because people use the rules that you set up for them.
Well, Craig, come on.
I'm not mad.
They right. I don't think it's anger, but there's a lot of money out there. We out here on these streets. We need help. We need all the things. I mean, Carolyn mentioned earlier broadband. There's a
wait.
Healthcare.
We're spending billions of dollars, and let me clarify, tens of billions of dollars on a bullet train from Fresno to Bakersfield. And that's not a waste of money, right? But actually holding our elected officials accountable and to say, oh, well, he because he didn't wear a mask at a restaurant, I think is completely and utterly underplaying all of the valid points that were made about his job performance. And quite frankly, it undermines the entire it undermines your argument because you know there was more to it than that. And I know there was more to it than that. Now, the California voters disagree. But we all know there was more to it than whether or not you wore a mask at a restaurant.
This was nonsense from Jump Street. Okay. And let's talk about the bullet train. Travel internationally and see how far advanced other countries are with respect to public transportation. Okay. This whole notion that the bullet train was a waste of money when other countries have very efficient, bullet trains.
The bullet train from Fresno to Bakersfield.
The bullet train, then a fool's errand. This was a fool's analogy. Let's talk about the false analogies. Just be, if you get mad because somebody, pursues the law. They've been having a conversation on CNN and all of the news networks the last 2 days about this Army general that basically intercepted the possibility that Trump might go rogue and telling everybody the procedures have to come through him because the president does have the authority to hit the button. That don't mean he should. Okay. And we all know right from wrong. We all know that this was a waste of time and this was a money grab and this was a power grab. Okay. And Larry Elder is foolish enough to believe that he's now the face of the Republican Party he gonna get his head busted again when he step out there next year too.
Wait. There's a lot there to unpack that is all completely unassociated or unrelated. I don't even know what to deal with first. I'm going to have to start taking notes because you're jumping all over the place.
Well, that's what I do.
One, you started off talking about what was supposed to be a response to my thing about a bullet train from Fresno to Bakersfield costing tens of billions of dollars. I thought that's what you were responding to. Then we start talking about Milley, who, if by all accounts, if he did what he did, could potentially constitute treason. I once again, and here's the only thing that I will say: if another general were doing that, were to come out right now and say that they were doing that to President Joe Biden because they didn't like his politics, and we know they didn't like his politics, Democrats would be up in arms.
I was drawing a proper analogy as to why, just because the law is in place, you don't necessarily have to use it. Okay, that's the analogy. But let's talk a little bit about, all of the numbers told us from Jump Street. I told you guys the other day that y'all was going to fail, and you was going to fail miserably. I mean, because there was no indication anywhere that the public was in favor of this recall.
Actually, at one point, the numbers were within the margin of error. At one point, it was like 48-45, so the numbers were within the margin of error.
That was before people started paying attention.
Well, that was before labor unions started spending tens of millions of dollars to save Gavin.
People started paying attention. I was never within 12 points.
Let me just say this. It wasn't about saving Gavin. What people were saving is their lives. They believe in science. They believe that they should be vaccinated. They believe they should be masked. They believe, and you talk about labor unions. Yeah, they're worried for their employees who are on the front lines trying to save us every day. And
let's talk about the science. Why is it that when educators, and I'm an educator, I'm a school board member, whenever we ask the governor, where's the data and the science supporting the decisions that you're making? The governor's office refused to share that data, refused to share that information. In fact, they were sued multiple times and lost multiple times because, once again, they refused to share the data and the information. Then they shut down churches. Now, you tell me the science that said that a church is different than any other entity or business where they should have been capped at 100 people in a particular church. You show me the data and the science that supports that.
Well, let me jump in on that point. I mean, honestly speaking, as a churchgoer, there was a lot of people dying from COVID.
Hello.
I mean, it was just like, okay, I belong to the Church of God in Christ, and it was rampant. Okay. And there's one local minister in Los Angeles, and I won't say his name, but I know he was heavy on social media in defiance of the shutdown order. And that brother died like within a week. If anything in my world, I just need to look at my church world to say, okay, and I need to pay attention and be more careful. So for me, the fact that they shut down churches, it's not a political issue because the proof is in the pudding right there.
But the point is that when they reopened, they allowed every other entity. Because guess what? A lot of people who were going to grocery stores were dying too. A lot of people who were going to other businesses were dying too. My point is this: is that they capped the number of people, no matter what size your church was, instead of just saying 25%, as they did with every other entity, specifically with churches, they capped it at 100. As I told you last time we were on the show, I go to a church that has a 3,500 seat sanctuary, right? So you're going to tell me that we can't socially distance at 25% or even at 10% and still be able to be safe? Mm-hmm. Come on, man. What makes my church different than going to Walmart?
But see, is that
your argument for recalling a governor? Because of that?
No, I'm saying, is that my sole argument? No, it's not my sole argument. It's the fact that he shut down in-person learning for everyone else and then sent his kids to a private school where they didn't have to shut down. It's what's good for thee is not good for me type leadership. That's what I'm talking about.
I think that the church situation, though, just is not a political situation. I just really believe
when a politician puts in place a policy that affects the church, it becomes a political thing.
Okay, all right. Well, it's
a public policy thing.
I attend a church that has a 5,000 seat sanctuary, and when they lifted up under political pressure, the bishop was still like, "Nah, we're not coming back." Okay, until we see.
Then that's fine, but that's an individual choice, right? That's an individual medical choice. But when you tell me that I'm not allowed, I'm the only organization. And by the way, this is at the same time that thousands of people are shoulder to shoulder in the streets protesting at the very same time. And by the way, these were public gatherings that were all supposed to be illegal, that all weren't supposed to be happening, but we did absolutely nothing about it. Matter of fact, we didn't just do that. Our governor encouraged it.
Well, that's, that to me, all of these are really petty issues to disrupt.
Well, to you they are, evidently to over 1 million people they weren't.
$1 million. These are petty ideological differences. Okay. At the end of the day, no one has ever managed a global pandemic because the last one was 100 years ago. Okay. And I really, in truth, the way Arnold ran this state, I don't think the Republicans could have managed the way Trump demonstrated just ignore it. We'll just have, what did he call it? Mass immunity or herd immunity. So you guys used a pandemic to create scenarios to try to use a quirk in the law, which was the low bar of California's recall, lowest in the nation. You say, here's an opportunity for us to get in. And what you expected was the Democrats to sleep this recall. You didn't expect the turnout that you got.
Oh, no. I will tell you right now, if it had been required for Democrats to actually go to the polls instead of having ballots mailed to them, I think the numbers would have been a lot closer. No, you're right. There are a lot of people who thought Democrats were just going to sleep through this.
You're the same person that just said, if that's the law, then that's the law. If you want to change,
no. Let us be clear.
So
the laws are passed by the legislative branch. This was not a decision. This was not a law that was put in place by the legislative branch. This was a decision by the executive branch. By the way, I'm not saying what he did is illegal. I'm just saying it changed the rules of the game. I didn't say it was illegal. I'm just saying that there was a reason he did it, and the reason he did it was so that he could win the recall.
Let's just do basic math. How many registered voters do you have in this state?
Oh, probably about 2. I'm trying to think of 2.
No,
I don't know our exact numbers.
20 total, correct. 2022. You're right. That's right. So, but how many are registered Republicans? We're just going to do math.
Well, first of all, what is it you're trying to get at? I don't keep these numbers off the top of my head.
What I'm trying to get at
before you give me the question.
He wants me to answer. Okay, I'll give you the answer. There are 10 million registered Democrats. There are 5 million registered Republicans, and there are almost 5 million maybe independents because they're mad at both of us. So at one point in time. So if you do the basic math, all we need to do is turn out half our people if all of your people voted. So when Anthony Samad is saying this was a fruitless effort to start, just the data itself says that it's a low probability of winning. And spending.
So we don't do things because there's a low probability of winning. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying yes, we can do some things, but when the math is that great in difference.
Well, I appreciate you being brave enough to come on and catch this smoke this morning because I'm getting ready to give it to you. You just said if voters had been required to go to the polls.
Yeah.
Now, Republicans been voting by mail forever, okay? And voter access, just 5 years ago in this state, we were getting 10% voter turnout, and the state, the legislature, and the governor said that we need to do more to increase civic engagement, civic participation. Okay, they were talking about multiple days. They were talking about voting on Saturdays, giving people paid days off. But the bottom line is, now that people are back engaged, to me, voter access should be as easy as possible. Okay, and that's what the Republicans are really mad at now, because they had counted on for years that Democrats, particularly Democrats of color, would just sleep elections and voted when they felt like it, or voted when there was just a personality on the ballot, and basically left these propositions to those who were more politically sophisticated. Okay, but now that the board has been leveled and the playing board is even, all of a sudden now you guys have a problem with mail-in balloting. To me, that's
if I can speak to that real quick. Republicans don't have a problem with mail-in balloting. The primary issue that Republicans had was, we already have in places like California, we have elected officials or people who don't want to make sure that the people who are actually getting the ballots are the people who are supposed to get the ballots. The way in which we normally do mail-in ballots is you request a mail-in ballot, there's a process, and then you get your ballot. But just mailing one to everyone who is registered, that's a new thing. And in most places where Republicans had objections or concerns were where it was a new thing. Now, in some states where they always do mail-in ballots, where they always allow people to do mail-in ballots, they already have a process set up. They already have a way to address all of the concerns and all of the pitfalls. The way we did it in 2020 and the way we did it in the special election, we didn't have any of that stuff set up. It was literally a last-minute decision by one person to change the way in which we vote.
True. That's absolutely not true. I sit on the advisory board for the LA County Board of Registrars, and I can guarantee you, for you to say there's absolutely no processes in place.
So in Los Angeles, they've always mailed ballots to just everybody who's registered?
Please don't cut me off. That was not what I was saying, and don't put words in my mouth. What I'm saying is, we use the DMV for people to register. We check signatures. All of that happens. You need to take a tour one time, even you're in Sacramento. Check your registrar. Go visit them. Go watch the processes. So for you to imply that there is the fraud that you didn't personally say this, but fraud was implied even before the ballots arrived, were to be counted. So all of this with no proof, even they're saying, even one of your candidates said they went to observe the process, and that was in San Diego, and they said they didn't find anything. So for you to imply that we didn't have processes in place to confirm that these are legitimate voters is incorrect and a total misrepresentation.
Well, once again, from what I understand,
I think Dr. Weber would agree with me.
But from what I would understand, in some places they actually just got rid of the signature requirement. In other words, verifying signatures on ballots. I know that, and you talked about utilizing DMV. But I think it was just about a year or so ago, where they actually identified that they registered tens of thousands of non-citizens through California's motor voter program.
There we go. That's the crux of the matter.
But it happened.
This is a racial.
That's not racial. That's nonsense. That's not racial. Registering people who aren't supposed to be able to vote. So in other words, you're saying we should register people who aren't supposed to vote, right?
Trust white people, but white people can't trust us.
So you're saying that we should register people who aren't supposed to vote. That's what you're saying. Saying that you're supposed to be a citizen to vote.
No,
we shouldn't be registering people who aren't supposed to be voting. Saying that is racist.
Okay. No. So go ahead and make your point there, Dr.
Talking about voter trust, talking about integrity of the ballot. Let me ask you a question. In California was one of the states that didn't allow prisoners to vote. Why do you think that's the case? Prisoners vote in Montana, prisoners vote in Iowa, prisoners vote. Why do you think that's the case? Because they didn't want to disenfranchise white prisoners, and they knew the prison population in California was mostly black and brown. Okay, all right. So you can't tell me that that policy is not racist.
Let me just lay this out there. You asked me a question. I'm now going to answer it.
Okay,
all right. So first of all, if you are a convicted felon in the state of California, and you've gone through the process, meaning you're not either on probation or incarceration or probation, then you do have the right to vote in California. That's number one.
We're talking about folk in prison, though.
Right, folks in prison.
California has the largest prison population in the nation.
Okay, so then let me lay this out there for you. Okay, so then you have in a state where Democrats control the legislature, Democrats control the executive. All of the executive, people who are incarcerated were not allowed to vote. And somehow that's Republicans' fault.
Yes, because I told you last week, if you look at the...
How is it Republicans' fault? Y'all control everything.
Let me answer you. Let me answer you.
Come on, man.
Let me answer you.
I want to take into consideration historical politics. And
historically.
I apologize for assuming your gender.
Thank you. She, her, hers.
You won't grow up and be like Larry Elder.
I'm just making points.
No, you're not making points. You're not making points.
I'm just wondering how Republicans are the ones to blame when Democrats run everything.
Let me jump in real quick, you guys. Okay, so Carolyn, please go ahead and make your point there.
Thank you, Greg. Get this gentleman under control. I'm using that term loosely.
Under control or gentleman?
Both.
I'm saying this. He may disagree. We can disagree with him, but he can still come to the barbecue. He can still come to the barbecue. And we're going to smoke those ribs.
But at any rate, when I talked about the infrastructure, and this is history, you should look it up. Yes, today we control, but the policies that have been in place, unfortunately, Craig, were done under Republican rule. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I was talking about last time, is that all those infrastructures, and including this whole recall process, have been in place for years under Republican infrastructure. We just got in control. We just got in total control. You have to think about
just got in control? Just got in control? Really?
Compared to how long has the state been here? How many Republican governors?
Look, all I know is that as long as I've been an adult, Democrats have controlled the California state legislature, and I'm not a young man.
How many governors have we had?
Well, you've had at least the last two. Well, I count Schwarzenegger as a Democrat, so you had at least the last four.
Okay, well,
you don't count Arnold.
I don't count Arnold.
Oh, you don't count Arnold.
I don't count Arnold.
I meant
he ran as a Republican, but he kind of finished off kind of like a whimpering like a Democrat.
I meant total governorship. Total governorship.
You know, all that.
Total governorship.
Extreme policy y'all was thinking about, he couldn't get it through.
Hey, he increased government regulation on business. He banned certain firearms. He took positions that were against traditional conservative family values. I'm just pointing to the fact that he's supported policy that was contrary to that is generally supported by Republicans. He talked a good game as a Republican, but in the end, he didn't govern like one.
Because he couldn't. He didn't understand government. Jerry Brown came.
No, I agree. Jerry Brown was more conservative than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you all a question. Okay, so this is all great, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm hearing some I'm agreeing with, some I'm disagreeing with, but I want to ask this general question just for us, the brothers on the street here. All right, now what? What's the future, right? We got all of this, and we've come through all of this. The arguments are out there on the table. You're going to ask us to come to the polls again next year, less than a year from now. We're going to go back to the polls for the same race, All right, now what? We we defeated the recall. Now what, Craig? What's next?
Well, I think number one is I think there needs to be once again a certain degree or level of accountability, and that is once again with Democrats being in control of everything, right? There ought to be an expectation by the Black community, and I said Black community because that's who our audience is in this particular case, for this administration and for the legislature to address the issues that are important to us, right? That are important to our community. Like I heard earlier about, well, how come this infrastructure? How come people who are in prison aren't able to vote? I don't necessarily agree with them being able to vote while they're incarcerated. But having said that, if that's something that is important to you, well, then your folks are totally in control. You could talk about what the foundation was. You could talk about where the infrastructure came from. Fact is that your folks are in a position to change that infrastructure.
True.
It's not that simple, and you know it. You know that there are a lot of Democratic districts that are barely Democratic districts. A lot of Democratic conservatives. Okay. The right to vote has nothing to do with whether or not you're incarcerated. Okay. Some of your rights are restricted, but not all of your rights are restricted. And if white folk can vote in white states, it only applies. Georgia, for instance, just allowed, everybody to be able to vote, and then, you have that tail where, in some states, about 17 states, if you were convicted of a felony, then your rights are taken for life. Okay. All of those things are vestiges of slavery that has nothing to do with the right to vote. Okay. So the first thing that I think California should do is have a constitutional convention to look at all of these, archaic types of laws that haven't been changed in over 100 years. But the second thing I think should be done is most certainly change the recall law, because the Republicans play too much. Okay, they don't mind wasting people's time and money, and they will try something like this again. Okay, just for political sport, because this was a test. This was a test by the Trumpsters, the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, all of those fringe groups that said, okay, we can use this quirk in the law and flip this state. Okay. Just like on the schoolyard, if you new to school, folk gonna try you. Okay. Gavin was new to school and they tried him. Okay. And he had to show that he had some fight in him. But what we need to do is make sure that the whole state that was focusing on, trying to eliminate COVID and trying to remedy homelessness, all of their attention was taken away for this fool's errand that the Republicans put, before the state, had the eyes of the whole nation on us, because they're like, if they flip California, then we got something here. Okay. And so we're tired of being tested by the Republicans on foolish stuff.
Okay,
Carolyn,
let us be clear.
Constitutional convention, is that a?
I would not disagree with a constitutional convention for this reason. It's way too easy to amend our Constitution, and if you look, it's kind of funny because our Constitution is a hot mess. It really is, and there's so many contradictory things and terms and all of that. Now, I doubt that a constitutional convention will turn out the way I would like it to turn out. But at the very least, I have some of these things that are in our Constitution debated, discussed, and perhaps fixed isn't such a bad thing. Because I think especially administratively, there'd be a lot that Republicans and Democrats would agree on in terms of that process.
Mm-hmm. Carolyn, what do you think? Constitutional convention?
Absolutely. There's so many things that we haven't looked at in so many years. And I understand it seems like there's constantly a crisis all the time. And COVID didn't help the situation at all. As Craig knows, many of the legislators had to cut back their bills, how many they can try to get through and pass. But I think we have to take a look and reprioritize. It was just interesting. I just I was looking at my phone because I just got a tweet from Dr. Shirley Weber, who is our Secretary of State. And she says California is probably the safest elections of any state in the nation. We have a lot of things in place. We check, we recheck, we verify. So I just find it interesting that all of a sudden, after all these years, now there's all this fraud when many of the registrars have automated and changed their processes and have more current election procedures than ever. But I think a constitutional amendment definitely, and this is a big constitution, so it's not going to take a lot of time, but at least have the discussion. We may not change anything, but can we be open to the dialogue? Can we be open so that the public can participate and hear where there's things that could be changed? And I agree with Craig. There are probably some things we would all agree on.
I would say this. It is. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Weber, for Shirley Weber. She's. But I will also say this. This is also the state where an individual was basically found with 300 recall ballots in the back seat of his car, in the trunk of his car. I get that we do everything we can to make sure that our elections are safe. But I think that taking steps to make sure, or people asking questions about whether or not our elections are safe, is not necessarily a bad thing.
I agree. I think there should always be questions.
Well, I will say
but I think if you're accusing of fraud and saying fraud, then you need a little more substantiation than just saying it.
300 ballots in the trunk of a car is a pretty good.
Argument. I will say this.
Did it change the outcome?
This is right out of the Reagan playbook. We always use the exception as the rule. This is how we got welfare reform and expanded poverty in this class because in this nation, because Reagan found one example of somebody bilking the system and said that that's what Black people do. Okay, so that's why we don't need welfare. But when farmers get subsidies, that's not called welfare. You know, I mean, they was giving everybody welfare after COVID because once, you know, the country shut down, everybody needed money. You know, we really dismiss the need for rebuilding our social infrastructure in this country because of the fact, you know, that the rich have not been made to pay taxes, you know, and if they just paid their fair share, everybody would get everything they wanted. But there seems to be a willingness to exploit the system and, you know, and then blame the poor or blame, you know, people of color as the victims of exploitation. You know, somebody, you know, having 300 ballots in their car. Yeah, that's a sad situation. But that's not necessarily a failure in the system. That's somebody who has found a way to build the system. That's an exception. That's not the rule.
First of all, Democrats generally govern based on exceptions to the rule. I mean, legislation by anecdote is the way in which Democrats govern. And I'll give you a great example, right? Wow. The current ban on semi-automatic centerfire rifles, right? We need to ban these things because they're evil. Do you know what percentage of gun crimes are where centerfire, where these rifles are used? Rifles as a whole are used in less than 3% of all gun crimes. These rifles are a small subset of that. But because there's an anecdote, because there was something that happened that wound up in the news, now we've banned it. So don't come at me with, you know, governance by anecdote, because that's pretty much the modus operandi of the Democratic Party.
How many times have those automatic weapons been used in school shootings?
None. Think about, I want you to, this is a little unfair because I want you to think about what you just said. You just said, how many times have those automatic weapons been used in school shootings?
So there's never been automatic weapons.
Never been automatic weapons.
There's semi-automatic weapons. It's a quirk
semantics.
Do you know what a semi-automatic weapon is?
But most
of those semi-automatic weapon is.
Most of those semi-automatic weapons have been modified.
No, not true. Not true. One trigger pull, that semi-automatic simply means you pull the trigger one time, one round comes out. That's the same with any revolver.
I'm
right?
not against
Well,
I know.
guns.
The point that I'm
I-
making is that anyway.
Craig, I really want to bring you back to talk about the whole gun thing, and I'm gonna just tell you, I'm 10 years Marine Corps, all that. We could go there, but I just feel like, having been someone who has buried young people to who have fallen to gun violence, who has been hugged by a mother who's lost their loved ones out here in the community to gun violence. The semantics of the technicalities of owning weapons, a bullet kills, and it's just out of control. I don't have the answer. I'm not an expert in this case. I just know that out here on these streets are hot. Okay, and people have guns, whether they're automatic, semi-automatic, pistol, revolver, rifle, whatever it is. Black people are killing black people. People are killing people in Long Beach right now.
Wait. Say that again. Say that again.
People are killing people,
right?
That's right.
Now,
and in Long Beach alone, it's off the chain right now.
So
Whether that's because of gang violence or just people going crazy because they're locked up from COVID. People are losing their doggone life on a daily basis out here.
And those are legitimate issues. Those are legitimate issues to address, but to attack a tool, because firearms are used over 2 million times a year in self-defense of one's property and one's life and one's loved ones. Over 2 million times every year.
But you're making it something that
we talk about bullets kill. We talk about bullets kill, but it's funny, and I always use this joke. I always say, I have laid my firearms out on the table. I've spoken harshly to them. I have ridiculed them. I've even abused them. I've even set out some bourbon, just in case my firearms want to get drunk, right? And guess what? Not one time, not one of my firearms has ever been violent. It's only when an individual decides to utilize a firearm in violence that's the problem. So the problem is not a firearm issue. It is a violence issue. For some reason, we have a society and a generation of people who believe that because they're hurt, because they're angry, because for whatever reason, that the solution is to enact violence upon other individuals. That's the core problem. And simply taking away law-abiding citizens' right to be able to defend themselves.
We didn't say that. You are going down that road.
I'm telling you what the laws are doing. I'm telling you that if you tell me during COVID, you had individuals.
Okay, Craig, why does a private citizen need a weapon of war? Like, that's what's on the
define a weapon of war for me.
Okay, look.
I told you that.
I need to bring you back.
We can have this conversation.
We could go there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but come on, man. There's some automatic weapons on these streets, bro. You can hear them at night.
And guess what? They are illegal. They're already illegal. So what's your point? It's already illegal for them to own them.
Okay, so then what do you?
The whole access to weaponry issue is about who can access guns and who can't.
That is correct.
Okay, which communities? You have some 23 states. Where folk have to hunt for a living, so you're never gonna get the Second Amendment modified in any way. They just want unrestricted. It's the interpretation of the Second Amendment, unrestricted access to weaponry. Then when you talk about where those guns are dumped, okay, they're generally dumped in poor communities. So then law enforcement agency, they have an excuse to put more money in law enforcement agencies to militarize.
Well, let's talk about gun. First of all, let's understand the roots of gun control, in particular in the state of California. In the 1870s, gun control was put in place in order to keep Native Americans from being able to purchase firearms and ammunition. In the 1930s, 1920s, 1923, there were laws put in place to keep Chinese and Mexicans. In the 1960s, you had the Mulford Act, which was put in place because they wanted to disarm the Black Panthers. All I'm saying is that in California, the roots of gun control have always been about keeping those people from owning firearms.
All right. Now tell me something I didn't know.
All right.
So all I'm saying is, you're okay with those people or them passing laws to keep law-abiding citizens, you and me, from being able to defend ourselves.
No, nobody said that.
No, but you know what? I want to table this topic for
Okay.
another time.
That's another show. You need to make him a regular.
We need to come back on this one, because I think it's a great conversation to have. I don't have the answer, right? But I just think that one thing that I do know is that there's too much shooting going on in these here streets, and that's just a fact of the matter. People are losing their lives, and we got to figure out something. I don't know what the answer is, but back to the recall. Okay, so
you don't want to talk about the recall. He
I liken the recall for Republicans to this. It's like, you know how you go buy a lottery ticket and you start thinking about and all the good things you're going to be able to do and buy and the people you're going to be able to help when you win, and then lottery day comes and the numbers are picked and you knew the odds were against you, but you lost, and so time to move on. That's kind of what the recall turned out to be for us Republicans.
Okay, so Craig, let me ask you this.
We're gonna take our whelps. I'm taking on my whelps. I'm taking my whelps.
Craig, let me ask you this question, Craig. So looking forward, okay, now that we've gone through this thing, now we're gonna go back to the polls for the governor. Is Larry Elder the Republicans' guy?
No.
Okay, who's
because it's one thing to take a month off from your job and your radio show to be able to promote running for governor. He's not going to be able to do that for the year-long campaign that it's going to take, and I don't see them keeping him on the air while he is in fact campaigning. So no, I don't see him as the candidate going forward for Republicans.
Who do you
agree on that one, Craig? Okay, don't say I didn't agree with you on anything.
We're gonna miss him now.
We're gonna miss him.
I appreciate you listening.
So, Craig, who is the guy? Who do you think, in your estimation? Give us.
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but I think two of the recall candidates that you're going to probably be looking at. One is going to be. One of them is going to be. All of a sudden, his name, the former mayor of San Diego. Faulkner. Yeah, don't ask me why his name. I literally was about to say it when it popped out of my head. I think he is an individual that is going to actually be an option. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin Kiley as a candidate as well. The real challenge is that it's going to be an uphill battle for whoever decides to do it.
That's right.
The fact is that you're going to have an instance where the current governor is. I think if there's an opportunity at a challenge, it'd be better coming from another Democrat.
What about a woman?
What?
No women.
No women. Well, no. Let's put it this way. I will tell you right now. I would endorse with sight and Condoleezza Rice if she were to decide to run. Now the problem is she's too smart to run for governor.
True.
I could see a Democrat challenging him if he demonstrated vulnerability, but he came out as strong as he came out, in 2018. So there's no. The bottom line is he's going to get a second term, and he's going to give the Republicans, 5 years to find somebody, that won't have to run against an incumbent. But I think basically by pulling off this recall shenanigan, I think that they just gave Gavin Newsom Gavin Newsom. I'm sorry. They just gave him a pass to a second term.
Mm-hmm. Well, right. You may very well be right. We shall see. I think a Democrat incumbent in the state of California, unless he would have to do worse than he's already doing, and I think he's doing a pretty bad job. He would have to do much, much worse than he is already doing in order to not win re-election at this point. Either that, or you would just have to have a star-studded candidate that appeals to both sides. And quite frankly, if that individual exists, I don't know who they are.
All right, let me ask you this now. Why was homelessness like such a big When I watched the interview with Gavin Newsom on this morning on CBS, they said, they pointed to homelessness as one of the reasons why they wanted to recall him. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. I don't think it's the office of the governor that's causing these homeless encampments. Why is that such a point for the Republicans? Last time we were all together, we said it wasn't. But in the rhetoric, in the narrative, it really is. It's like it's one of the main reasons that they wanted to recall him.
Go back and look at his initial campaign and what he talked about doing and how he talked about addressing the issue of homelessness in the state of California. And the problem is he's done nothing that he said he was going to do. In fact, things have gotten worse. Also, if you look back at his tenure during when he was mayor of San Francisco, it was one of the issues where he actually performed the worst. The other issue, quite frankly, it was also one of the issues that polled the highest when looking at the recall. And sometimes, I hate to say this, sometimes it's a matter of, and this is politics speaking. It's a matter of what's the biggest issue. Okay, we're gonna blame them or that guy for that particular issue. The truth is, in my opinion, it's something that should be laid at the feet of all Democrats, in particular those in the legislature.
Well,
the biggest issue was COVID, and that's in every poll, everything you check. That was the biggest issue. And fortunately for us, your side did not have the right venue. They picked that we should not be masked, we should not be cut down, we should not be. And 63% of the people said, yeah, we should. That was the biggest issue.
Well, I also think the Republicans were in search of an answer to a question that they already knew the answer to. Homelessness basically has been around for 12 years. In fact, California reached the tipping point on homelessness in 2012. And once you've reached the tipping point, there's not a lot that anything could do. It's like a flood. You can't stop it until it subsides. Now, what you juxtapose that against is the fact the disappearance of the CRA. So the cities had no money to build affordable housing. We saw increases in California inflation and people dropping out of their homes. Okay, and that's what we saw.
To be clear, cities
put more money in this budget, the 2020 budget from last year and the 2021-22 budget from this year. He put more money toward homelessness than any other governor.
To be clear, cities don't build housing. They subsidize housing. They take projects that otherwise investors would not see as profitable, and they utilize those subsidies in order to make them profitable. A big challenge with
developers.
Right. A lot of the challenge with a lot of homelessness, like I said last time, was, for example, it costs $80,000. And this was actually, that's a number that was like 3 years old. But $80,000 before you break ground to build a one unit of single family housing in the state of California. And that's on average. That's looking at rural areas. But then when you start looking at urban areas, the cost goes up even more.
So how is that the governor's fault?
Well, these are all regulations and laws put in place by the Democratic legislature and by Democratic politicians in these particular areas.
I will say Governor Brown made a mistake removing the CRA. And it goes to your point about, now that was anecdotal, because there was an identification of some misuse of funds. He made this overall arching decision that we shouldn't do that anymore. I do agree with you on that. That was not a good decision.
And we can see the ramifications out of that in the whole community development area and all that. There's got to be, there's nonprofits out there that are hard at work in trying to build, affordable housing in underserved communities. And, it's not easy because we don't have those CRA funds.
Well, not only that, it's because we keep using for-profit developers versus the nonprofits and land trusts and other tools. Housing discussion is another discussion.
That's another show, right? Okay.
The developer forces have overtaken the policy forces, and it's real clear. Yeah, I mean, with just the controversies we've had down here in Los Angeles.
Yep.
You know, they developers are buying politicians, you know, to get variances, you know, to build, you know, not affordable housing, but market rate housing, you know, and so the developer forces have been strong, you know, for at least 6 or 7 years.
Well, I'll share this with you, and this is something that I think that people in both parties on both sides need to get a hold of the idea of, is understand that big business and corporations are not partisan. They support whoever's in power. Right now, the overwhelming majority of political dollars and political campaigns from big corporations go to Democrats in the state of California. Now, in Republican states, it goes the exact opposite. It goes the opposite way. But understand that the Republican Party is not in the pocket of corporations. Understand that, number one. Understand that those who are in power may be, but it all depends on where you're at. In California, it's Democrats.
Special interests, particularly developers, give to both sides. They build in a cushion. Okay.
Well, so do yeah.
But Craig, your point. I think Craig's point was, though, until we get that money out of politics, I think that's his point. Is that
the problem is the only thing that's going to remove money from politics is an electorate that chooses to inform themselves and be engaged, because you can't tell corporations, well, you're not going to be able to donate, or business, you can't donate, but we're going to let labor unions donate. You just can't do that.
Well,
you have to decide. We're either going to let everybody be involved, or we're going to let nobody be involved.
I agree.
All right, y'all. Look, our hour is up. But man, thank you so much for coming on and providing us with exciting conversation this morning. Look, I almost didn't need my coffee, you know, but
I needed mine.
Well, I only drink 1 cup of coffee a day, and it's a 32-ounce cup.
Oh,
that's right. That's
What's
right.
that, like 4 cups?
Yeah, that's about right. man.
See, that's those wealthy Republicans. They can afford 4 cups.
Hey, same amount of Folgers, just more water.
See, there you go.
Water. That's another subject.
That is another subject. I see Patrice Marshall McKenzie did say that on here. She said it's been a fight in California since the state's inception, is what she says. You know,
and still is.
Still is. Right. Well, I thank you all for coming on. You know, I mean, briefly, any last words there, Carolyn, to the people?
You know what? I'm hoping that both sides will have learned from this, and hopefully we start focusing on the issues that really impact the citizens of this state. And we know what they are: healthcare, homelessness, for starters. And then I do think I do hope that we would really look at a constitutional summit. I really do, because I think having that discussion, whether they move forward with anything, I think it opens up the dialogue to where can we work together? What are some of the things that we can do? And I'm not hating on the bullet train, because I've been to other countries. I'm mad we should have them from every which way, all the money we spent. And $276 million would have been a small deposit, but it would have been a start. So with that, I hope people will continue to vote, continue to stay engaged, and support the issues that are important to them.
Dr. Samad?
Well, I think this was a great opportunity, a teaching moment, to educate less sophisticated voters about the damage that the ballot initiative process could do. Okay. We generally don't have elections where we focus solely, you know, on the proposition legislation. And, you know, this time it was about Gavin Newsom, but it really wasn't. It was really about a quirk in the law in the Constitution that could have set the state sideways. And now maybe in future elections, the voting public will pay greater attention to ballot initiatives and legislative proposition legislation.
All right. Brother Craig?
I'll just close with this. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to come on. I think we need to have more dialogue like this. My goal in these conversations is not agreement, it's understanding. And Greg, I appreciate you working to try and foster that understanding, because ultimately we need to get all sides and know and understand all sides in order to have a full understanding of issues. When we only get one side, that's not education, that's indoctrination. And none of us, especially our folks, should not be submitting themselves to that. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I look forward to coming on and conversating with y'all again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Craig, for coming on. And I will say this: yes, you could come to the barbecue, but you need to leave your weapons at home. All right, y'all. There it is. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Another great show. Thank you to all of your guests. You guys can check this out on Facebook. Where are we? Facebook and YouTube. Yes. You can also hear the audio version only. We'll upload that wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I'm talking Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeart, Google. Just say Coffee Conversations with Greg J, and you'll get it. All right, y'all. Remember, love one another. Love one another.
You guys take care.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Take care, y'all. Thank you.
You too.
All right.